This video is going to go over the basics of the unit circle. So the reason we are going over the unit circle is this unit circle gives us a faster way to get an exact answer for a trig equation. If you remember when we plugged these in the calculator, we got decimals. Decimals are less exact. So with these questions, we're going to get a more exact answer, and a lot of times we can get it faster. So first thing we need to know, the unit circle. Unit means one. It's kind of like the unit rate of something. That's the price for one thing. So this is a unit circle, which means it has a radius of 1. It will always have a radius of 1. Now we're going to take this unit circle kind of one step at a time and kind of build our way up. So we're not going to jump right into those square root symbols like you guys know about. So first thing is the points. So you guys can see this is a coordinate plane. So that point in the very center where I wrote the radius, that is the point 0, 0. Now if we have a radius of 1, that means I'm going over 1 and up 0. So that point right there is 1, 0. My point up at the top, I'm going over 0, up 1. Let's make that a little nicer looking. So the coordinate of that one is 0, 1. Then I have the one to the left here. I went left 1, so that's -1 and 0. And then at the bottom, we got 0 and -1. So let me fix this one point that was kind of messy. Okay, so that point's not getting any better. Okay, so once we have those points, the next thing I want to talk about is the basic angles. So when I'm talking about angles, that would be like if I had, so this is one line for my angle, and then I'm going to have a second line right on top. So this angle right here would be at 0 degrees. My next angle, again, this is my first leg of the angle, this is my second side. So this angle, if I look right here, that is a 90-degree angle. So I have 90 degrees. If I were to go halfway around the circle, that is 180 degrees. If I went to the next point, this would be 180 plus another 90 degrees, which is 270 degrees. And then if we went full circle, that would be 360. So this point right here actually has the two different values depending on how far around the circle you go. So it's 0 degrees or 360. So what I want to do first, before we get to more angles, is talk about how to actually use this unit circle. So one of the basic things we need to know is that the sine is equal to the y value, and cosine is equal to the x value of the coordinate. And then tangent is, I briefly talked about this during the trig basics section. Tangent is sine over cosine, so it is y over x. And this is going to be true every single time for every single unit circle problem. So let's say I asked you to find the sine of, let's go with 180 degrees. The way we would do this, we would look at our circle, we'd go to the 180 degree mark, and we know sine is the y value, so we'd take the y value at 180 degrees, which is 0. So the sine of 180 degrees is 0. So let's look at maybe one or two more. So if I said find the cosine, let's do the cosine of 360 degrees. So I would go to the 360 degree mark on my unit circle, which is right here, and then I would take the x value of that coordinate, which is 1. So the cosine of 360 degrees is equal to 1. So you guys can see this is a whole lot faster than actually plugging it in the calculator, and we get nice exact answers. So the only time it gets a little trickier, like when we have tangent, let's say I have the tangent of, let's do 270 degrees. So tangent is y over x, so I'm going to take the y coordinate and put it over the x coordinate. So I have -1 divided by 0. Now, we have to remember, you cannot divide by 0. That's one of our mathematical laws. We just cannot do it. So this one, we would say it is undefined because you cannot divide by a 0. So these are the basics of how to use the unit circle, and that is going to stay the same throughout the whole thing. So we're going to be adding more angles, adding in the radians, but you still use it the same way. Sine is always the y value of the angle. So all you have to do, find the angle, and then figure out if you're looking at the sine, cosine, to pick out the x or the y. So what I want to do next is actually add in more of the angles. We're going to look at the angles in the first quadrant first. So we are going to focus on 3 major angles here. So the first one, what we are going to do is move and create angles every 30 degrees. So that, oops, let's make that nicer. Okay, so my program isn't letting me make really nice angles. So this is, these are 2 of our angles. So if I look at, let me change the color real quick. So this angle right here, this angle, I said we moved 30 degrees, so that is the 30-degree angle. The next one we have is this angle. So again, I'm looking at the 0-degree mark and my new line. I moved another 30 degrees, so this is my 60-degree angle. And then for my third angle, I want to take that quadrant and cut it in half. So half of 90 is 45 degrees. So these are the 3 angles that we're going to use in that first quadrant. Now the coordinates for these angles, there is a way to actually derive these numbers, and it's using what you know about special right triangles, the 30, 60, 90, and the 45, 45, 90. So we can talk about that at a later time. Like I said, this one I just want to go over the basics of how to use the unit circle. So I'm going to give you the coordinates. So for that 30-degree mark, the x value is √3/2, the y value is 1/2. For my 45, we have √2/2 and √2/2, and my 60-degree mark is the opposite of the 30, so 1/2 and √3/2. So from here, let's say we go ahead and try to solve some trig functions. So let's say I said find the cosine of 30 degrees. So for cosine, that's the x value, so I go to my 30-degree mark, which is right here, and I want to take the x value since I'm looking at the cosine. So the cosine of 30 degrees is just √3/2. So you can see this √3/2 is much more exact than an actual decimal. So the only times it gets a little trickier are when we have like a tangent. So let's say we do the tangent of 60 degrees. So for this one, tangent of 60, we want to take y, put the y on the top, x on the bottom. So my y value is √3/2, and I need to divide that by 1/2. So if we just do some work off to the side, I can't, this means division. I can't divide fractions, so I change it to multiplication and flip my second fraction, 2/1. So you can either cancel the 2's or multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. So let's do it that way. And then I can cancel my 2's right here, and I'm left with just the square root of 3. So that giant compound fraction just turns into the square root of 3. So that is how we are going to solve our unit circle problems. So the only thing my first quadrant is missing is now the radian values. So let's fill some of those in real quick. Let me change colors. So my radians, one pi would be half of a circle. So if I look at a half of a circle, so half of a semicircle, that would be pi over 2. So now if I look at this, my 45-degree mark, that's half of a half, so that's pi over 4. And if you ever forget these radians, you can always just take your angles and convert them using pi over 180. So our 30 degrees is pi over 6, and 60 degrees is pi over 3. So you can also solve these trig problems using radians. So let's say I said find the sine of, let's do the sine of pi over 6. So the sine of pi over 6, I'd go to the pi over 6 mark, which is at 30 degrees. Sine is the y value, so sine of pi over 6 is just equal to 1/2. So I know this video went a little bit longer, but I really wanted you guys to understand the basics of the unit circle so that we can kind of build on that. So the best way to learn something and remember something, because you will have to memorize this whole unit circle, is to write it down. So what I want you guys to do is write down the whole unit circle. You're going to draw your own and fill in all of the angles. So if you guys just Google the unit circle, you're going to see each quadrant gets separated into those 3 angles. Like this. Oop, not like that. So your finished circle should look something like this, with each quadrant being broken up into 3 sections. So I want you to draw your unit circle, fill in the angles for each spot, fill in the coordinates for each spot, and make sure you're filling in the radians also. When you're filling this in, you'll probably recognize some patterns. If you recognize those patterns, it's going to help you really remember the unit circle, and it's going to make it easier to construct it later on. So make sure you are focusing on creating your unit circle. Again, you're kind of just copying it from the computer or from some website, but every time you write it, it's going to help you remember it. So good luck with your unit circle.